Global markets are watching events unfold in China with some trepidation, but no one seems to know exactly what's going on. With me to discuss the rout in China is Jamil Anderlini, Beijing Bureau Chief. Jamil, what exactly are Chinese authorities trying to do to stem this crisis?
Ultimately, it's really hard to work out what the Chinese government's intentions and its plan is for stopping this turmoil in the markets right now. No leader since the market bottomed out in early July from the top levels of the government, has even come out publicly to reassure investors, to come out and say what the government plans to do. They've done things, obviously, a lot. They've put in extraordinary measures to halt the fall of stocks, which are now not really working. They've also devalued the currency or moved to a new market managed currency. But the problem is they have a real difficulty in communicating their plans and the way that they want, the plan that they have to fix things. One thing that's quite extraordinary, the central bank governor, Zhou has not been seen in public since August 11, when his institution devalued the currency. So he's not come out and said publicly what they plan to do.
Of all the things that are going on in China, what do you think foreign investors are most concerned about?
They're most concerned about the opacity and the lack of messaging from Beijing. Nobody really knows it's a black box. They don't know what Beijing is trying to do. So they see the currency move one day and they say, oh, they read into it that Beijing wants to devalue the currency to boost exports. The next day, it seems like Beijing has repegged the currency. So they say, well, maybe that means that Beijing wants to keep it steady. But Beijing itself is not telling anyone what it really wants to do, and this is a real problem. In the past, when you talk to global investors, you'd ask them, you'd raise a question about problems in the Chinese economy, and many times you'd get this blanket answer, which was the Chinese leaders are very smart. There seemed to be this feeling that China's leaders were these omnipotent beings who were meritocratically selected, and that they had a plan, and that you should just believe in their plan. And I think that is really breaking down. People are starting to say, hey, you know what? They're like policymakers everywhere else. Maybe they don't have some grand master plan. Maybe they're just winging it. And I think that actually, funnily enough, is probably the thing roiling markets the most outside of China.
Given this opacity, as a foreign correspondent operating in Beijing, how do you make sense of all of this?
It's very, very difficult. I'll give you a small anecdote. So, Financial Times was actually blacklisted by the central bank by the PBOC, People's Bank of China, about 8 years ago. So for 8 years, we were not allowed to go to press conferences. They don't hold many press conferences, so it wasn't that bad for us. And so we were blacklisted. So 8 years, no content. Then a couple of days after the devaluation on August 11th, I got a phone call late at night from the central bank, and they ordered me to be at the central bank the next morning at 10 a.m. And I was like, okay, fine. I turn up, and it was a press conference. And the press conference was Yi Gang, who's the deputy central bank governor. He's a very polished, very, very smart intellectual, as many people know. The press conference proceeded to, it was like, we call them the 5 o'clock follies in the Vietnam War. The things that people were saying, the central bank vice governor, were so divorced from reality. It was really astonishing to watch it. In the same sentence, this very polished, Western-educated, US-educated central banker told me that we must, or told everyone, we must respect the market, fear the market, and we must listen to the market, but the government must also manage everything. And so these two fundamentally contradictory things were said in almost the same sentence. So, for example, you hear over and over, socialism with Chinese characteristics is the system, they say.
Right, well, we now have a market with falling characteristics, so we'll see how it goes from here. Jamil Anderlini, thank you very much.